Welcome back to AgriVista, where we explore topics in agriculture. I'm Joshua Tigas. We'll be taking a closer look at where the Albert City Threshermen began. Threshing. While threshing machines are few and far between in today's age, their historical impact litters modern agriculture, from compacting processes to bringing communities together. On this episode, we'll dive into the technical and social aspects of threshing. Let's take a look at what's coming up.
There was one machine per county, I think is what a lot of the old guys said.
Separates the grain from the straw and then kicks the straw back, puts the grain in a wagon.
It has two studs up on the bottom for the concave, and then a rotating knives go through it to knock the seeds out.
You just gotta come out here to see it.
All of this and more coming up on AgriVista. To kick off our deep dive into each featured aspect of the Albert City Threshermen, we'll take a look at where it all began. Threshing. Although labor-intensive, this revolutionary machine that emerged in the early 1900s changed agriculture forever. Whether looking at the streamlined processes or community-oriented nature, there's no doubt this piece of equipment pioneered foundational principles new machinery follows. To learn more, let's take a look at what threshing is all about.
With modern technology, farmers are able to achieve average yields over 200 bushels per acre, for corn that is, and harvest well over 150 acres, all within a day's work. While modern combines are capable of such astonishing numbers, there is no doubt the streamlined process these massive machines conduct wouldn't be without the rich history of threshing.
A thresh machine is basically how they separate the wheat from the straw, and it goes through like 5 processes of feeding, thrashing, separating, cleaning, and grain handling.
In a revolutionary way of processing wheat, threshing machines introduced a streamlined process compacted into modern machines. Suddenly, the stages of separating a seed from the straw happened by feeding one piece of equipment.
And the threshing machine it takes those sheaves, cuts them open, separates the grain from the straw, and then kicks the straw at the back, puts the grain in a wagon.
With most threshing machines driven by a belt system, steam tractors would be lined up to deliver the required power. Like most modern practices, though, nothing went to waste. Although farmers were chasing the grain, the straw still served a key purpose in livestock feed and bedding.
What we do with the straw stack is, I've got an old wheel rake. We use that to pull just enough straw out of the stack to make a windrow. We can go around. I chase 2 guys around 2 balers around the straw stack until the straw stack's gone.
Even being simple in nature, these machines were labor intensive, often demanding a community effort.
There was one machine per county, I think is what a lot of the old guys said, and they would have a crew that would go around from farm to farm and thrash.
With long days in the field, this piece of equipment has built strong bonds between neighbors, perhaps being the birthplace of Iowa Nice. A streamlined process this machine introduced carved the path for modern equipment. While antique in today's age, those continuing to endure the labor-intensive process purely as a habit highlight the importance of understanding where agriculture has come from to propel the industry and where it is heading.
I'm now joined by Norm Hansen, a volunteer and board member of the Albert City Threshermen, who has spent his fair share of time using a threshing machine. Now, Norm, walk me through the process of how a crop goes from the field to inside a wagon with a seed.
Well, first off, when the wheat or oats or whatever it was gets ripe enough, they'll go into the field with the binder, and it's basically a cutter bar with a reel and a canvas, and it'll gather seeds up into a bundle of straw and seed, and then tie it together with a piece of twine, drop it on the ground, and then the people will go out there in the field and they will make what they call a shock, which is a few bundles and a rain cap on top of a bundle. From there, they'll leave them set in the field, probably a little time to let them sweat and go through their stage, and then they'll pick them up on bundle racks with a pitchfork and throw them on the racks. And then they'll take and haul them into the thrashing machine and park them alongside. And then they'll start pitching them into the feeder on the thrashing machine. The thrashing machine basically will have 5 or 6 different steps that it goes through. It'll have feeding, thrashing, separation, cleaning, and grain handling, and then the residue. But when they pitch it into the feeder, they'll have, usually we run 2 people in a rack, and they'll alternate every other bundle in there. When they pitch it into the feeder, they'll throw it heads first because it does a better job of separating. At the top of the feeder, there's a set of rotating knives that cut the twines on the bundles and allows it to enter the threshing cylinder. The threshing cylinder is called a spike tooth cylinder. It has 2 studs up on the bottom for the concave, and then rotating knives go through it to knock the seeds out. From there, it'll go onto the straw racks, and from there, the straw racks' basic purpose is to shake the seeds out of the rest of the straw. And when it exits the straw, it'll go into the blower and blow it up into the straw stack. When the seeds fall through the concave in the straw rack, it'll go into the shaker pan. And the shaker pan from there will send it back to the chaffer, which is the top sieve. It'll do 90% of your separation, and with a blast of wind from the cleaning fan. The lower sieve does the final cleaning. Anything that goes through the lower sieve will go straight into the clean grain elevator, which goes up to the top. And there is a scale usually at the top that they would scale everybody's wheat or oats as they would load it into the wagons. The blower would blow the straw up into what they call the straw stack. Usually you had a few people up in there to help level it out as they were blowing it. You would have one person on top of the threshing machine that would run the threshing machine, and he would give instructions to the steam engine guy or the gas guy on the tractor. And then we'd have 2 guys usually to feed into the threshing machine. You'd have a big crew out in the field to pick up bundles.
Yeah, so definitely an intensive effort there, demanding a bunch of people, whether it's out in the field or working on the actual threshing machine itself. So just how many people is needed to work through this whole process?
Oh, you'd have probably 10 to 12 people at least, lots. The more it is, the easier work it is.
Yeah, for sure. Like you mentioned, there's a bunch of different roles there, whether it's pitching stuff up onto the wagon out in the field or into the machine itself. But you also mentioned too in that last package that there was on average about 1 thresher per county and stuff. So how did that kind of work with getting all of the crop out of the field?
Well, basically they would take it, one person would buy one, and from what I've been told by the older people, then they would just take and go around and around the county and pick up and do each farm as each farm got ripe. And if everybody helped everybody back then do their crop.
Yeah, and you mentioned too how they would scale out the different crops that it was coming to, so they'd ensure that everyone got their right share and everything with that, right?
Yep.
Yeah.
It was all measured out by the scale.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, but then with that too, with everyone working together, I have to imagine that really strengthened the community there too, with everyone working together. So have you heard any stories from back in the day from those guys working together with that?
The only thing I remember from what the old guys have told me is that the wives always had the best meals, and that's what everyone looked forward to when they were doing it. But everyone just got along and worked with everybody.
Yeah, yep, that was kind of the mentality back then. Of it had to get done. There was only one way they were going to do it. So they kind of pitched together to do that. But these are a great example of how the machinery of today is kind of a luxury, how it's like back then with this intense process, but it kind of those foundational principles, that process that was established by these machines led to where we are today. But before you go, we do have a viewer question that was sent in. So they're wondering, what is the most physically demanding job of the threshing process, whether it's out in the field or working on the actual threshing machine itself?
I would say it's probably loading the bundles out in the field. By the time you start throwing bundles 10 feet high and getting them on the rack and picking them up, I would say that's probably it. Yeah, for sure. Well, Norm, thank you for taking the time to be with us, and make sure you make your way out to the Albert City Threshermen's and Collectors Show August 11th to the 13th to see these antique threshing machines in action. Tune in next time when we continue our deep dive by looking at steam engine tractors. I'm Josh Watigas, and you've been watching the special Albert City Threshermen series on AgriVista, where we explore the past to understand the present and excel into the future.